Today, we're traveling around the world to explore some of the most dangerous hotels you won't believe actually exist. From glass capsules hanging off cliffs to underwater bedrooms, frozen ice hotels, and rooms surrounded by wild predators. Follow us into these impossible places where simply checking in can feel like an adventure. And our first hotel takes us high above Peru's Sacred Valley. Skylodge Adventure Suites, Sacred Valley, Peru. High above Peru's Sacred Valley, transparent sleeping capsules appear to cling directly to a massive cliff, hundreds of feet above the ground. From below, Skylodge looks less like a hotel and more like something accidentally left hanging from the mountain. Reaching your room is part of the experience. Guests can climb the rock face using a protected via ferrata route or approach through a system of zip lines suspended across the valley. Once inside, the glass walls expose nearly every direction, leaving little between you and the enormous drop outside. But the real shock comes after sunset, when the valley disappears into darkness and the capsule seems to float alone above the landscape. Beds, dining space, and basic comforts have somehow been fitted into this impossible location. For most hotels, checking in means walking through a lobby. Here, reaching your bed already feels like surviving an expedition. The Muraka, Conrad, Maldives, Rangali Island, Maldives. In the Maldives, one of the world's most extraordinary hotel bedrooms is not built above the ocean, but beneath it. The Muraka extends several meters below the surface, placing guests inside a transparent underwater world surrounded by the Indian Ocean. Its lower level contains a bedroom enclosed by curved acrylic walls, allowing fish and other marine life to move directly overhead while guests lie in bed. Above the water, the residence looks like an ultra-luxury villa. Below it, the atmosphere changes completely. At night, the ocean becomes darker and more mysterious, while silhouettes can appear beyond the glass with almost no warning. The experience remains carefully engineered, yet psychologically, sleeping beneath millions of tons of seawater feels anything but ordinary. The strangest part is the contrast. What looks like paradise from the surface becomes an isolated chamber beneath the sea, where the ocean never truly disappears from view. Lion Lodge, Port Lympne Reserve, England. Most hotel windows are designed to show mountains, cities, or beaches. At Lion Lodge in England, the view can be a full-grown lion, standing only a few feet away. Located inside Port Lympne Reserve, the lodge places guests beside a lion enclosure, separated from the animals by reinforced barriers and large viewing windows. From the bedroom or living area, visitors can watch powerful predators move through their territory at extremely close range. During daylight, the experience can feel fascinating and almost peaceful, but after dark, the atmosphere changes. A lion appearing suddenly outside the glass is a reminder that these are not domesticated animals, but hunters capable of extraordinary strength. The lodge is designed around safety, yet that does not remove the psychological tension of sleeping beside predators. Few luxury hotels offer a wake-up call quite like this, opening your eyes and discovering a lion already watching you from the other side. ICEHOTEL, Jukkasjärvi, Sweden. Far above the Arctic Circle in northern Sweden, there is a hotel where the walls, furniture, sculptures, and even parts of the beds are created from ice and snow. Every winter, ICEHOTEL transforms the frozen landscape of Jukkasjärvi into something that seems temporary and impossible. Guests sleep in insulated sleeping bags inside rooms kept well below normal indoor temperatures. Ice sculptures surround the beds, while frozen corridors connect spaces that feel more like an art installation than conventional accommodation. But the cold is only part of the story. Much of the seasonal hotel is rebuilt again and again as winter returns, using ice harvested from the nearby Torn River. That means guests are not simply entering a building. They are sleeping inside a structure shaped by the Arctic itself. Most hotels fight against the weather outside. ICEHOTEL does the opposite, turning one of Earth's harshest environments into the very material people sleep inside. Jules Undersea Lodge, Key Largo, Florida, USA. There is no driveway leading to Jules Undersea Lodge, and no ordinary front door waiting at the surface. To reach this hotel in Key Largo, guests must descend beneath the water and scuba dive directly to the entrance. The lodge sits on the floor of a marine lagoon, where visitors enter through an underwater opening before emerging into a pressurized interior chamber. Large windows reveal fish passing outside, while the entire room remains separated from the surrounding water. Unlike underwater resorts reached by elevators or staircases, the journey itself creates the hook. Before guests can sleep here, they must first become diverse. That changes the meaning of checking into a hotel completely. Equipment, underwater conditions, and the unusual entrance all become part of the experience. Once inside, the lodge may feel surprisingly comfortable, but then you look through the window and remember there is no hallway outside, only water stretching in every direction. Montaña Mágica Lodge, Patagonia, Chile. Hidden within the forests of Chilean Patagonia stands a hotel that looks like a small mountain covered in vegetation. Montaña Mágica Lodge rises from the trees in a steep cone, with water cascading from the top and flowing down its exterior like a living waterfall. Windows appear between plants and stone-like surfaces, while a narrow bridge leads guests toward the entrance. From a distance, the structure can easily be mistaken for part of the landscape, rather than a place where people actually sleep. The surrounding environment makes it even stranger. Dense forest, remote terrain, heavy rainfall, and volcanic landscapes give this region of Patagonia an almost prehistoric atmosphere. Yet inside the artificial mountain are guest rooms and warm wooden interiors. That contrast is what makes the lodge so memorable. Visitors travel deep into a wild landscape, only to discover a hotel disguised as the landscape itself, as though the forest slowly grew around the building and decided never to let it go. Treehotel, Harads, Sweden. Deep in the forests of northern Sweden, some hotel rooms do not stand on the ground at all. Treehotel suspends a collection of unusual cabins among tall pine trees, including a mirrored cube, a giant bird's nest, and even a room shaped like a UFO. Each design creates a different illusion. The mirror cube reflects the surrounding forest until the building almost disappears, while the bird's nest hides behind an exterior of tangled branches. The UFO looks as though something from another world has landed between the trees. Guests reach the rooms using stairs, bridges, or elevated access routes, leaving them sleeping above the forest floor. The height is not extreme compared with a cliff hotel, but the psychological effect is powerful. At night, the forest becomes dark and silent, while the rooms remain suspended among the trunks. Here, the danger is less about survival and more about the strange feeling of sleeping somewhere architecture was never supposed to exist. Kokopelli's Cave Bed and Breakfast, New Mexico, USA. From the outside, this sandstone cliff in New Mexico gives almost no indication that a hotel room exists inside it. Kokopelli's cave is carved directly into the rock, turning an ancient-looking desert formation into an underground place to sleep. Guests descend toward the entrance before stepping into a spacious chamber surrounded by thick sandstone walls. Inside, the temperature remains naturally stable, while windows and openings reveal the rugged landscape far beyond the cliff. The unusual location creates a strange sense of separation from the surface world. There is no conventional hotel corridor, no towering lobby, and almost no exterior building to identify. But that is exactly what makes the place memorable. Most hotels are constructed on top of the landscape. Kokopelli's cave disappears into it. At night, when the desert outside becomes completely dark and silent, the room feels less like accommodation and more like a hidden refuge carved deep into the earth. Kakslauttanen Arctic Resort, Finnish Lapland. Deep in Finnish Lapland, glass igloos are scattered across a frozen landscape where winter can dominate for months. Kakslauttanen Arctic Resort places guests beneath transparent domes designed to reveal one of the Arctic's most dramatic sights without leaving the warmth of bed. Outside, temperatures can fall far below freezing, while snow blankets the surrounding forest. Inside, the igloos remain heated as guests watch the night sky through curved glass roofs. But the real spectacle begins when the northern lights appear above the trees, turning the darkness into waves of green and violet. The beauty can make the environment seem gentle, yet the Arctic remains unforgiving. Extreme cold, deep snow, and long periods of darkness shape nearly every part of life here. What feels like a luxury escape exists only because modern engineering keeps the wilderness outside. Beyond the glass, one of Earth's harshest environments is still waiting just a few feet away. Shipwreck Lodge, Skeleton Coast, Namibia. Along Namibia's Skeleton Coast, the Atlantic Ocean meets an enormous desert in a landscape famous for fog, violent surf, and the remains of ships that never escaped the shoreline. In the middle of this isolation stands Shipwreck Lodge. Its cabins are deliberately shaped like broken vessels scattered across the sand, creating the illusion of a forgotten wreck site far from civilization. The location makes the design even more convincing. Cold ocean currents collide with desert air, producing heavy fog that has historically made this coastline dangerous for navigation. Guests arrive in a place where dunes stretch inland while rough seas dominate the opposite horizon. Wildlife may appear in the surrounding wilderness, but human settlements feel impossibly distant. The hotel itself is comfortable, yet everything outside tells a different story. On a coast named for vessels that disappeared into sand and surf, sleeping inside a building designed to resemble another wreck creates an atmosphere few hotels can match. Giraffe Manor, Nairobi, Kenya. At most hotels, breakfast arrives on a plate. At Giraffe Manor in Kenya, it can arrive with a giraffe pushing its head through the window. Located near Nairobi, the historic manor is famous for its close encounters with Rothschild's giraffes, which roam the surrounding sanctuary and often approach the building during the morning. Their enormous height allows them to reach upper windows, balconies, and dining areas, creating scenes that look almost staged. Guests may find a giraffe standing just outside while they drink coffee or sit at the table. The experience is carefully managed, but the scale of the animals remains impossible to ignore. A giraffe can tower over people and extend its long neck directly into spaces normally reserved for hotel guests. Unlike predator lodges, the atmosphere is usually playful rather than threatening. Still, very few hotels allow wildlife to become part of the architecture itself, turning an ordinary breakfast into a face-to-face encounter with one of Africa's tallest animals. Bivacco Giraffe, Italian Alps, Italy. High in the Italian Alps, a strange red and white capsule appears to protrude from a mountainside with almost nothing beneath it. Bivacco Giraffe is not a traditional luxury hotel, but few overnight shelters look more impossible. The structure sits in an extreme alpine environment, reached only by experienced climbers and mountaineers. Steep terrain, snow, ice, rapidly changing weather, and exposed routes make the journey part of the challenge. Inside, the capsule provides basic protection from the mountain, offering sleeping space where building an ordinary structure would be extremely difficult. But outside the walls, the Alps remain completely unforgiving. The most remarkable detail is its position. From certain angles, the shelter seems suspended over the slope, as though half the building has been pushed directly into empty air. For travelers accustomed to elevators and hotel lobbies, this is the opposite experience. The room may be simple, but reaching it requires entering a world where one mistake can become serious. Kulm Hotel Gornergrat, Switzerland. At more than 3,000 meters above sea level, 3,100 Kulm Hotel Gornergrat stands high in the Swiss Alps, with some of Europe's most famous peaks surrounding it. The Matterhorn dominates the horizon, while glaciers and snow-covered mountains stretch across the landscape. The hotel's elevation is what makes it extraordinary. Thin mountain air, freezing conditions, and rapidly changing weather create an environment completely different from the valleys below. Guests reach Gornergrat by mountain railway, climbing steadily until forests disappear and the terrain becomes increasingly barren. By day, the location offers enormous panoramic views, but after sunset, when most visitors descend, the mountain becomes quieter and far more isolated. The contrast is striking. Inside is a warm hotel with beds, food, and shelter. Outside is a high-altitude landscape where exposure can quickly become dangerous. Few hotels place guests this comfortably in a setting that normally belongs to mountaineers, observatories, and permanent snow. Hotel Everest View, Nepal. High in the Himalayas above Namche Bazaar, Hotel Everest View stands in a landscape where the air is thinner, the weather changes quickly, and Mount Everest rises beyond some of the world's highest peaks. Simply reaching the hotel is already part of the adventure. Most visitors arrive after trekking through steep mountain trails, crossing suspension bridges, and gradually gaining altitude to reduce the risk of sickness. There are no ordinary highways leading directly to the entrance, and every step brings travelers deeper into an environment shaped by cold, wind, and extreme elevation. Yet inside, guests can sit comfortably while staring toward Everest from a place few hotels could ever occupy. That contrast makes the experience extraordinary. Outside lies one of the harshest mountain regions on Earth. Inside are warm rooms, meals, and shelter. For many travelers, this hotel is not merely somewhere to sleep. It is a front row seat to the roof of the world. ICEHOTEL Kirkenes, 365, Norway. Near Norway's far northeastern frontier, close to the Arctic wilderness, guests can spend the night inside rooms built almost entirely from snow and ice. ICEHOTEL Kirkenes 365 keeps its frozen world intact, even beyond the traditional winter season. Inside, enormous ice sculptures line the corridors, while guests sleep in thermal sleeping bags surrounded by frozen walls. The temperature remains below freezing, creating an environment that feels closer to an Arctic expedition camp than a conventional hotel. But step outside and the setting becomes even more extreme. Kirkenes experiences long winter nights, deep snow, and temperatures capable of becoming dangerous without proper clothing and preparation. The hotel protects visitors from the worst of the Arctic, yet it never lets them forget where they are. Most travelers search for warmth when winter arrives. Here, people travel thousands of miles for the opposite reason, to spend the night surrounded by ice in one of Europe's coldest inhabited regions. Sorisniva Igloo Hotel, Alta, Norway. Every winter, beside Norway's Alta River, an enormous hotel rises from thousands of tons of snow and ice, only to disappear again when warmer weather returns. Sorisniva Igloo Hotel is not designed to last forever, and that is part of what makes it so unusual. Its rooms, corridors, sculptures, and decorative features are rebuilt seasonally, turning frozen water into an elaborate temporary world. Guests sleep on insulated bedding, while temperatures inside remain below freezing throughout the night. Yet the greater challenge waits beyond the walls. Alta lies deep in northern Norway, where winter brings long darkness, heavy snow, and severe Arctic conditions. Inside the hotel, carefully designed systems make the cold manageable. Outside, nature controls everything. There is something almost impossible about paying to sleep inside a structure that will eventually melt back into the landscape, leaving almost no trace that an entire hotel once stood there. Free Spirit Spheres, Vancouver Island, Canada. Hidden among the towering trees of Vancouver Island, several giant wooden spheres hang suspended above the forest floor like strange objects from another world. These are Free Spirit Spheres, where guests sleep inside rooms held between living trees. The spherical cabins are supported by cables and accessed through elevated platforms or stairways. Because they are suspended rather than resting traditionally on the ground, even slight movement can remind guests that their bedroom is hanging inside the forest. From the windows, tree trunks and branches surround the room in nearly every direction, creating the sensation of being enclosed within the canopy itself. The setting is peaceful, but the architecture challenges almost everything expected from a normal hotel. There are no concrete foundations beneath these rooms and no conventional hallways connecting them. Instead, guests climb into a suspended wooden shell and spend the night above the forest floor, proving that sometimes the strangest hotels are not built against nature. They are literally hanging from it. Sextantio Le Grotte della Civita, Matera, Italy. In the ancient city of Matera, southern Italy, some hotel rooms are hidden inside caves that humans have occupied for centuries. Sextantio Le Grotte della Civita transforms these rugged stone chambers into accommodation without erasing the atmosphere of their extraordinary past. The rooms are carved into the rock of the Sassi, a maze of cave dwellings, narrow passages, and ancient structures built into the hillside. Thick stone walls surround beds and baths, while minimal lighting preserves the feeling of entering another era. What appears primitive from the outside becomes surprisingly comfortable within. But the real attraction is the sense of sleeping inside history itself. These spaces were never created as modern luxury suites. They evolved from settlements shaped by necessity and the geology beneath Matera. Most hotels attempt to separate guests from the past. Here, the walls are the past, massive layers of stone that have witnessed generations long before anyone imagined turning them into hotel rooms. Cappadocia Cave Suites, Göreme, Turkey. Across Cappadocia, bizarre rock formations rise from the landscape like stone towers, while ancient rooms and tunnels disappear directly into volcanic cliffs. In Göreme, cave hotels allow visitors to sleep inside this extraordinary terrain rather than simply look at it. Many rooms are carved into soft, volcanic rock, once used for homes, churches, and shelters. Narrow stairways lead through stone corridors before opening into chambers hidden beneath the surface. During the day, hundreds of hot air balloons can rise above the valleys, creating one of the most recognizable landscapes in the world. But beneath that beautiful view lies a far older story of people adapting to an environment that offered protection inside the rock itself. The result feels almost impossible. Modern beds, bathrooms, and luxury comforts surrounded by walls shaped from ancient volcanic material. Outside, Cappadocia resembles another planet. Inside these hotels, guests discover that people have been living within that strange landscape for centuries. Atlantis, the Palm, Underwater Suites, Dubai, UAE. On Dubai's Palm Jumeirah, Atlantis, the Palm hides some of its most unusual hotel rooms behind enormous aquarium windows. Inside the underwater suites, guests can lie in bed, while sharks, rays, and thousands of fish move through the water only a few feet away. The rooms are not actually resting on the ocean floor, yet the illusion is powerful. Floor-to-ceiling glass opens directly toward the resort's vast aquarium, turning the bedroom into a private viewing chamber surrounded by marine life. During the day, the scene can feel calm and almost dreamlike. At night, the darker water changes the atmosphere completely as large silhouettes drift past the glass. Everything is carefully engineered, but the psychological effect remains strange. Most luxury hotels separate guests from the outside world. Here, the wall itself disappears into an underwater environment, making it feel as though an entire ocean has been placed directly beside the bed. Alila Jabal Akhdar, Oman. High in Oman's Al-Hajar Mountains, Alila Jabal Akhdar appears to sit directly on the edge of a vast canyon. The hotel is surrounded by barren peaks, steep cliffs, and rugged terrain that makes the landscape feel almost completely cut off from the world below. Reaching this region requires climbing deep into the mountains, where roads twist upward through increasingly remote terrain. The higher you travel, the more the desert changes into exposed rock, sharp ridges, and dramatic drops. The hotel itself blends into the stone, with terraces and rooms facing directly toward the canyon. But the most striking feature is the scale outside the windows. What looks beautiful from a protected balcony becomes far more intimidating when you realize how quickly the land falls away beyond the edge. Here, luxury exists beside one of Oman's harshest mountain environments, creating a hotel that feels less built on the landscape than balanced precariously above it. White Pod Eco-Luxury Hotel, Swiss Alps. Scattered across a snowy mountainside in Switzerland, a collection of white geodesic domes looks more like a remote scientific station than a luxury hotel. White Pod places guests inside individual pods, surrounded by forests, steep slopes, and the vast landscape of the Swiss Alps. Reaching the accommodation can involve leaving ordinary roads behind and continuing through mountain terrain, where snow becomes part of everyday life. Inside each pod, warmth and comfort contrast sharply with the cold outside. Large windows face the mountains, while the dome shape creates the strange feeling of sleeping inside a futuristic shelter at the edge of civilization. But winter changes everything. Deep snow, freezing temperatures, and rapidly shifting mountain weather can make the surrounding environment far less forgiving than the peaceful view suggests. From a distance, the pods nearly disappear into the white landscape. It is easy to imagine them not as hotel rooms, but as isolated survival capsules waiting for a storm. Arctic Treehouse Hotel, Rovaniemi, Finland. Near the Arctic Circle in Finnish Lapland, the Arctic Treehouse Hotel places modern cabins among snow-covered forests where winter darkness can last for much of the day. Each room is designed around a large window facing the northern sky. Guests can remain inside a warm bed while watching snow fall across the forest or waiting for the northern lights to appear above the trees. The experience looks peaceful, but outside the glass lies an environment shaped by extreme cold. Winter temperatures can plunge well below freezing, while deep snow and limited daylight transform even simple movement through the forest. The hotel turns that harsh setting into part of the attraction rather than something to escape. At night, the dark forest can become almost completely silent, with only scattered lights revealing the cabins among the trees. For guests inside, it feels luxurious. Step beyond the door, however, and the Arctic quickly reminds you that this beautiful landscape was never designed for human comfort. Karosta Prison, Liepāja, Latvia. Some travelers choose hotels for comfort. At Karosta Prison in Latvia, the entire experience is built around the opposite idea. building once served as a military prison, and parts of it have been preserved to recreate the atmosphere of confinement. Visitors can enter former cells, walk through stark corridors, and even participate in overnight experiences inspired by the prison's harsh history. There are no panoramic windows or luxury suites waiting inside. Bare rooms, narrow spaces, and the building's institutional design make the experience deliberately uncomfortable. But the physical surroundings are only part of what makes Karosta unsettling. Stories connected to former prisoners and reports of unexplained activity have added a darker reputation to the site over the years. Sleeping here is less about relaxation than immersion. For most guests, a hotel is somewhere they are free to leave whenever they want. Karosta was built for people who once had no such choice. The Queen Mary, Long Beach, California, USA. Docked permanently in Long Beach, California, the Queen Mary looks like a grand ocean liner frozen in time. Once built to cross the Atlantic, the enormous ship now operates partly as a hotel, allowing guests to sleep inside cabins that once carried passengers across some of the world's roughest seas. Its long corridors, aging machinery, and preserved interiors already create an atmosphere unlike any conventional hotel. But the ship is equally famous for something less visible. Over the years, stories of unexplained footsteps, strange sounds, and supposed apparitions have helped give the Queen Mary a reputation as one of America's most famous haunted destinations. At night, the scale of the vessel can make those stories feel more believable. Endless hallways stretch through the ship, while the outside world remains separated by steel walls. The Queen Mary survived decades at sea. Today, some visitors come not for its history, but for whatever may still be wandering inside. The Stanley Hotel, Colorado, USA. High in the mountains of Colorado, the Stanley Hotel appears elegant and almost peaceful during daylight. Its white facade, red roof, and dramatic surroundings make it look like a classic mountain resort. But its reputation has been shaped just as much by the stories told after dark. The hotel is closely associated with tales of paranormal activity and became famous in popular culture after inspiring Stephen King during a stay in the 1970s. Guests and staff have reported unexplained sounds, doors moving, and strange events in certain parts of the building. Whether those stories are believed or not, the setting adds to the atmosphere. Mountain weather, long corridors, and the hotel's historic interior can feel very different once the building becomes quiet at night. Unlike cliff or underwater hotels, the danger here is psychological. Nothing outside the window may be threatening, yet many guests arrive specifically hoping that something inside the hotel will reveal itself. Fairmont Banff Springs, Alberta, Canada. Deep in the Canadian Rockies, Fairmont Banff Springs rises above the Bow River like a massive stone castle surrounded by forests, mountains, and long winters. Its dramatic appearance alone makes it feel more like a fortress than a conventional hotel. Built in the late 19th century, the property has accumulated more than a century of stories, including legends of unexplained footsteps, mysterious figures, and rooms associated with unusual events. During the day, the mountain setting is spectacular, but after dark, the enormous corridors, historic staircases, and old stone walls create an entirely different atmosphere. The isolation of Banff adds another layer. Beyond the hotel lies a wilderness shaped by snow, wildlife, and rugged terrain. Guests come for luxury and scenery, yet many also arrive because of the stories surrounding the building. In a landscape already dominated by mountains and darkness, this castle has become famous for the possibility that some of its oldest guests may never have checked out. Fogo Island Inn, Newfoundland, Canada. At the edge of Newfoundland, Fogo Island Inn stands above a rocky shoreline, facing the cold North Atlantic, in a place where the horizon can feel almost completely empty. The building appears to balance on stilts near the ocean, surrounded by exposed rock, powerful winds, and a landscape with very little to interrupt the view. Reaching Fogo Island already requires traveling far from major cities and continuing across water to one of Canada's most remote, inhabited islands. But the real attraction begins once guests arrive. From the rooms, enormous windows face directly toward the Atlantic, where storms, drifting ice, and rough seas can transform the peaceful view within hours. Inside, the hotel is warm and refined. Outside, the environment remains raw and unpredictable. Few luxury hotels create such a strong contradiction. You can sleep in complete comfort while watching one of the harshest coastlines in the North Atlantic unfold only yards beyond the glass. Hôtel de Glace, Quebec, Canada. Every winter in Quebec, an entire hotel is constructed from snow and ice, complete with frozen walls, elaborate sculptures, and rooms that exist only until warmer temperatures return. Hôtel de Glace transforms winter itself into architecture. Guests sleep on insulated beds inside chambers where temperatures remain below freezing, surrounded by carved ice that reflects light through the corridors. Some rooms include elaborate frozen designs, making each space feel more like a temporary sculpture than a hotel suite. But unlike an ordinary building, this hotel has an expiration date. When spring arrives, much of the structure melts away and must be created again the following winter. That temporary existence gives the hotel an almost unreal quality. Most hotels are designed to survive decades. This one is expected to disappear. For visitors, spending the night here means sleeping inside something beautiful, freezing, and temporary. A building that nature will eventually erase almost as completely as if it had never existed.